What's up, folks? Welcome back to another episode where we're going to be absolutely killing it here as the nation of Austria. If you were watching closely, you saw that I just took some inflation and interest reduction from the Papal tab. And I wanted to talk about, before we get into this here, guys, that we've done a lot of the generic tasks as Austria, as you well know, including getting the unions, but also reigning in Italy. And at this stage, guys, I highly recommend that you actually do what is required to appease the Pope, and by that I mean try to improve your relations. My relations are around 81 right now, but I will hopefully, there we go, I put a diplomat into the Pope to actually try to max out those relations, as it is going to have an effect on your papal influence. And of course, the major benefit from the papal influence is going to be, of course, the Diplo reputation, which is going to allow you to really go crazy alongside the Diplo reputation from being Austria, as well as the diplomatic ideas, and acquire those votes while you're still going crazy aggressive without even actually allying the electors, of course. That's the plan, just simply improving your relations with the electors and acquiring those votes thanks to that Diplo reputation. But of course, the inflation reduction is huge, as Austria begins with one of, if not the best. I'm not actually sure if there is a better gold mine than Tyrol, giving us that 8 plus ducats a month, which is absolutely ridiculous. Very nice, but of course comes at the cost of that inflation. So we want to keep that low. In my case, my inflation was well above 10 at some stages, and I did a couple times have to reduce it, but I did eventually rope it in via as you can see there, I just took an inflation reduction advisor, as well as the Austrian idea and the papal buff from the papacy, able to just slowly have it reduced despite stealing copious amounts of money from various nations throughout the game. But very important in my opinion. And after the Diplo rep and the papal influence, there's a lot of other nice buffs just in general, like the tax modifier as well as the manpower modifier. Or legitimacy, if you need it, is very nice. Yearly legitimacy. There's a lot of buffs from the Pope, but my personal favorite is the spending 100 influence for stability, and that's going to come into huge play, as I've mentioned in other videos, in terms of truce breaking, or no CBing, if that's what's required. If I think it's pragmatic to no CB, for example, with the Protestant Reformation, we can utilize that papal influence to boost our stability back up and not necessarily use our admin points. Now, with that being said, guys, the objective of this episode is going to be to undermine the Ottoman Empire. I really want to put in our tendrils of destruction to really expose signs of weakness. And the method that I want to do that, as many people would suspect, is to take provinces on the Balkan side, but just enough, of course, to release subjects, which is going to allow us to have a beautiful CB against him. So the primary one is going to be, of course, taking a Greek province and releasing Byzantium, but it's very important when you are doing it yourself, it's important to take note of the Byzantium core on Constantinople. And the reason is because if the core disappears, which it will fairly quickly, because the province becomes Turkish, therefore the Byzantium core will taper off quite quickly, like within about 50 years. Not only will it have, it will lose the CB, etc., but of course the fact that the Byzantium no longer has core there means, quite frankly, that they just won't even be stable in that province. So it's very nice on multiple levels that you do use the reconquest, CB on the capital city, as it's an extremely high development province at this stage of the game, considering the fact that the Ottomans have also boosted the development via the mission to make it their new capital. So it's an extremely highly developed province, and it would be a shame to miss out on the CB there, but also the fact that the Byzantium will be able to stabilize it even though it's not their own religion. And with that being said, you have to take note of the year that it's actually going to defect. The core is going to defect from Byzantium, and that's going to determine whether you actually take it or not in this initial war. Now, for those of you who don't know, you cannot release a subject in a province that they have core where that core is not of their same cultural group. So let's take Bulgaria, for example. Bulgaria, if Bulgaria had somehow spawned and expanded into the Ottoman Empire, into Greek provinces, and then the Ottomans managed to sort of annex them, let's say, well, you would not be able to release Bulgaria from a Greek province, despite them having core there. So it's important to understand that. And you can, however, release them, of course, from a Bulgarian province if they have core, and you can release them from even any southern Slavic province, any province that has a similar culture. For example, forgive my pronunciation, the province of Uskop, right there in southern Serbia. You can actually release Bulgaria there because they have core, despite it being Serbian culture. So it's important to understand this dynamic because, like I just said, the Constantinople is going to be Turkish culture group. So if you take Constantinople, believe it or not, you cannot actually release Byzantium. In order to release Byzantium, we're going to need to take a Greek province with Byzantium core. And the reason that I rant on about this is because let's say that Byzantium's core was going to disappear in 5 years from now, in 1498. Well, then I would not have time to use the CB, and it would be a shame to let it go. So in order to release Byzantium with Constantinople, which I think is a reasonable thing to do because the core is going to disappear, I would have to take both Constantinople and another province of Greek culture in order to release them. Now, in my case, I believe the core was going to taper off in about 14 years from now. And so I was feeling comfortable with the fact that I was not going to take Constantinople, and I was going to be very determined when my truce was up to actually go in and use that Reconquest CB against the Ottomans and take back the capital of Byzantium via the Reconquest CB. But I know that was a bit of a rant. I hope that that was clear so that you guys can understand, because it would be a shame to lose that high development province. Of course, Austria can integrate it via diplomacy as a subject much more inefficiently than they can actually core it up because of their own ideas, where they get 15% reduced integration cost. And as far as this war against the Ottomans, guys, I have declared war on them whilst they were fighting the Mamluks, just like I said I would, and that is why you've noticed, if you've been paying attention, a bit of an absence of troops here throughout this war. But it's very important, and I highly suggest throughout all of these episodes, I've kind of suggested that you ally Poland, and Poland is going to help you, of course, in this war. Now, it just so happens that Castile also helped me, which was not of all too much consequence, as he did not participate massively. I think maybe some Nepalese troops walked down here, I'm not 100% sure. Metropolitan troops, if that's how you refer to them. But either way, I was able to flood his Balkan region and actually get enough for war score here. Now, because of what I said, I'm just going to take one Greek province, and because I want my truce to come up here fairly shortly, I'm actually not, and I recommend that you guys do not go in for a massive war here. I'm actually just trying to get enough war score and reduce his enthusiasm enough to take exactly what I intend to take, and that's going to be one province in order to release Serbia and one in order to release Byzantium, and keep my truce time actually short with them, believe it or not. Luckily, the Poles have almost 10 favors with me again. They have around 7 favors, if I remember correctly, and I'm pretty confident that they're going to have 10 favors once my truce has come up with the Ottomans. But that's what I recommend doing, because it's just going to cost you so many Diplo points, and those Diplo points are valuable here in the beginning of the game, that you just take a province to release Serbia. Now, if, for example, the Ottomans have not annexed Serbia, you're going to have to be opportunistic and take what you think is sensible. So another good choice is taking a province and releasing Bulgaria, for example. But that's it. It's pretty easy. from my experience, make sure to have a good general if you can and lead the Polish troops, as their tech level sometimes is not that high. So very much use their troops to kind of bolster your own against the Ottomans. But either way, guys, just taking a small amount of land. I hope that you guys enjoyed this, and thank you very much for watching once again this episode.